I'm 32 years old, male, living in the suburbs of Chicago, Lake Forest to be exact. It's that kind of place, you know, where lawns are perfectly manicured, cars gleam, and houses look like they're straight out of magazines about the ideal American life. Irony, right? Because inside me right now, there's a real hurricane brewing. I'm broken, trampled, destroyed. I don't even know how to find the words to describe what I'm feeling. My wife, Sarah, is 30, and we have a son, Liam, our little 3-year-old whirlwind of energy who's still oblivious to what's happening in our, as he sees it, perfect world. We've been together for 10 years, a whole decade since college, when the world seemed so simple and clear, when love was something pure, bright, and unbreakable. Married for 4 years. 4 years, how bitter and ironic those words sound now, like a mockery of fate. I make decent money, a regional manager for the Northwestern hardware chain, kind of like Ace Hardware, but bigger and more established. Sarah has been a stay-at-home mom with Liam since he was born, and I've always been incredibly grateful to her for that. I saw how tired she got, how hard it was for her, how she sacrificed her interests and ambitions for our son and our family. And now, it turns out, all this time, she's been living a double life. I just found out she's cheating on me. And it's not some fleeting weakness, not a random kiss at a drunken party. No, it's a carefully concealed, meticulously planned, months-long affair. An affair she's been carrying on behind my back, right under my nose, in our own house, under our shared roof. You know that chilling, unpleasant feeling when you watch a horror movie, all cozy in your armchair, munching on popcorn, and think, well, that's definitely not about me. That would never happen to me? That would never happen to me. Well, welcome to my personal horror movie, except the popcorn stuck in my throat like a lump. The armchair has suddenly become a torture device, and instead of a screen, there's a mirror reflecting my own image, the image of a deceived, betrayed husband. It all started, as it often does, with routine, with everyday hustle, with an ordinary Friday that foreshadowed nothing bad. Last Friday, I stayed late at work, as usual at the end of the quarter, when deadlines are looming. Reports need to be submitted, no matter what. Plans are falling apart, and everyone's running around like crazy, trying to salvage something, to patch up the holes somehow. Sarah texted me in the afternoon, closer to evening, that Liam was having trouble sleeping, that he was fussy, crying, and couldn't fall asleep. Of course, I rushed home as quickly as possible, dropping all unfinished business, just to help her, just to soothe our little fussy pot. When I got home, there was a ringing silence in the house. Sarah and Liam were asleep in the nursery, exhausted from daytime games, evening tantrums, and insomnia. I peeked into the nursery. Sarah was lying on the edge of the crib, curled up in a ball. Liam was dozing off, his face buried in a soft toy. They looked so peaceful, so defenseless, so mine. I quietly slipped into the house, trying not to wake them. In the dim light of the living room, there was a slight mess. Toys scattered on the carpet, an unfinished cup of coffee on the coffee table, a child's blanket lying on the sofa. A typical evening scene in our house, a picture of family comfort and warmth. I quietly went to the kitchen, made myself dinner, microwaved the leftovers of yesterday's pasta, poured myself a glass of iced tea, turned on the TV, flipping through channels in search of something that could distract me from nagging work thoughts, even for a moment. But some strange, sticky, unpleasant feeling of anxiety wouldn't let go. Like a thin, invisible thread stretched out in the air, vibrating with tension, foreshadowing an impending storm. It's hard to explain exactly what bothered me. Just some vague, oppressive, gnawing unease, as if something important, vital, was slipping away from me, like water through my fingers, and I couldn't hold on to it. Sarah's birthday's coming up soon, in a couple of weeks, at the beginning of next month, and I, as usual, started racking my brain about what to get her. Every year before her birthday, I turn into a real detective, trying to unravel her secret desires, guess exactly what will please her, what will make her eyes shine with happiness. Sarah never hints directly. No, Sarah is not one of those women who openly say what they want. She prefers to act more subtly, with hints, innuendos. Usually, she just kind of casually, in passing, mentioned something she liked, something that caught her attention, and I already pick up on it, trying to catch her subtle signals, unravel her mysterious female logic. But this time, silence. Complete, deafening silence. No hint, no half-word, no glance toward shop windows. Nothing. I remembered how once, a few months ago, when we were walking downtown, we accidentally wandered into a small jewelry boutique. Sarah stopped at the window then, gazing at one ring. So delicate, thin, almost weightless, with a tiny, barely noticeable diamond, sparkling like a drop of dew on a flower petal. I thought, perfect, that's what she needs. Elegant, understated, and just her style. I decided to check on the boutique's website if the ring was in stock, so as not to drive downtown in vain, not to waste time in traffic jams and searching for parking. I took Sarah's laptop. We share one, an old one, but still quite functional. We mainly use it for simple tasks, surfing the internet, online shopping, watching movies in the evenings when Liam is already asleep. I opened the browser, expecting to see, as usual, tabs with cooking blogs, forums for young mothers, sites with recipes for homemade preserves for the winter. And there, in the first tab, the website of that very jewelry boutique, Les Bijoux, was open. Lucky me. A fleeting thought flashed through my mind. She's already done half the work for me. All that's left is to find this ring on the site and order it online. I started searching for the ring on the site, scrolling through pages with jewelry, rings, earrings, bracelets, pendants, and then my gaze accidentally caught on the browser history. Usually, I never look into the search history. It's somehow wrong, I guess, to pry into someone else's personal affairs. But this time, something pushed me, some strange, inexplicable curiosity. And that's when the alarm bell started ringing in my head. First quietly, barely audible, like a distant bell, and then louder and more persistent, turning into a deafening, piercing ringing, like a fire siren tearing through the night silence. It wasn't what Sarah usually searched for on the internet. No pie recipes, no childcare advice, no links to children's clothing or furniture store websites. Instead, the search history was filled with queries that took my breath away. Romantic weekend getaways near Chicago, hotels with jacuzzis, best date night restaurants downtown, with live music and Lake Michigan views, how to surprise your husband on his birthday, surprise ideas for husband. Okay, weird. A faint hope flashed through my mind, trying to find some rational explanation for this anomaly. Maybe she really is planning some rational explanation for this anomaly. But my heart was already pounding in my chest like a trapped bird, foreboding something bad, as if smelling smoke. And then the search history took a sharp, frightening, blood-curdling turn. How to reignite the spark in long-term relationships, psychologist advice, signs your husband is losing interest in his wife, how to recognize emotional affairs versus physical affairs, what's the difference, which is more dangerous for a marriage. My stomach went cold, as if I swallowed a piece of Arctic ice. I felt a cold dread slowly but surely creeping up my spine, constricting my breathing, paralyzing my will, turning me into an ice statue. I scrolled further down the search history, with some painful, agonizing, almost masochistic curiosity, like a charmed rabbit, paralyzed by fear, watching an approaching snake, and there it was. At the very bottom of the list, almost at the very end of the search history, a link to some little-known online forum, a website with anonymous relationship advice, something like relationshiperescue.net was flickering. The topic title, highlighted in bold, screaming font, crashed into my consciousness like a hammer blow. Married, but in love with someone else. What to do? Anonymous. I clicked on the link. I couldn't stop, couldn't look away, as if spellbound, as if hypnotized. Like some painful, unnatural tiaga, like a dark evil force, was leading me straight into the jaws of a monster, straight to hell. And there the abyss opened up. An abyss of lies, betrayal, deceit, and unbearable, corrosive pain. There was a long, rambling, desperate cry from the soul, An anonymous post written by Sarah. Or, rather, by someone using an anonymous account, a nickname like Lonely Chicago Girl. But I knew it was her. I recognized her style, her way of expressing thoughts, her intonation, the smallest details, some barely perceptible but so familiar turns of phrase that only the closest person could know, only someone who had lived side by side with her for a lifetime. I just knew. My heart was pounding, screaming, protesting. My mind refused to believe this nightmare, but intuition, that sixth, damned female instinct, whispered a bitter, merciless truth that made my blood run cold. She was pouring out her soul to an anonymous online community, talking about her feelings for some man. She wrote about how he made her feel alive, desired, special, the only one in the world. She said she loved him, that he was her soulmate, that they were made for each other, that she had never felt anything like this for anyone else. But at the same time, she was terribly afraid of hurting me and Liam, afraid of destroying our family, afraid of losing everything she had. She was asking for advice from strangers, from anonymous internet advisors, what to do in this unbearable situation, whether she should leave me, whether she should tell me the truth, whether she should change anything in her stable and prosperous, but so bland and boring life at all. And then, like a thunderclap in a clear sky, like a shot point blank, in the middle of this stream of consciousness, in this cry of despair, in this anonymous plea for help, she mentioned his name. The name was common, widespread in America, Michael, nothing special, so at first I didn't understand, didn't attach any importance to it. But then something clicked in my head, some distant, vague association, like an echo of a forgotten memory. I reread the name again, slowly, letter by letter, and again, and again. And suddenly it was as if a high-voltage current hit me. I remembered who this Michael was, our friend, a person from our social circle whom we have known for many years, almost from the very beginning of our relationship with Sarah. Michael Davis. Michael, that guy we met at a party at Mutual Friends back in college. Mutual Friends back in college. Michael, who's always been so nice, friendly, sociable, always ready to support in difficult times, always ready to help. Michael, who often comes to our barbecues on weekends, with whom we sometimes play board games in the evenings when the kids fall asleep, with whom we go to the movies and baseball games together. Michael, whom I considered my friend, almost a brother, whom I trusted like myself, whom I let into my house, into my family, who ate at our table, played with my son, laughed with us at silly jokes. I slammed the laptop shut. Just slammed it shut with such fury, with such force, as if I wanted to smash it to pieces, destroy it, erase it from the face of the earth, cut off my hand, sever the source of pain, get rid of the carrier of the terrible, unbearable truth forever. I leaned back on the bed, as if thrown back by a powerful blast wave. I sat motionless, as if paralyzed, staring blankly at the wall, and tried to realize, digest, swallow this bitter pill, this poisoned chalice that fate had presented to me. There was complete chaos in my head. Thoughts were rushing around like frightened birds in a cramped cage, colliding, interrupting each other, preventing me from concentrating on anything. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't even allow the thought that it could be true. But the bitter truth, like a poisonous, suffocating fog, slowly but surely filled my entire consciousness, penetrated every cell of my body, poisoning, corroding, destroying everything bright and good that was still left in me. I sat like that, probably for ages, motionlessly staring at the wall, as if trying to find answers there to the agonizing questions that were swarming in my head. But the wall was silent, indifferent, and unconcerned about my pain. Instead of answers, fragments of memories flashed before me, shards of our past, which suddenly acquired a sinister, distorted meaning. I remembered our first meeting with Sarah in the university cafeteria 10 years ago. I, a clumsy and shy physics sophomore, with a pile of books and notebooks, accidentally bumped into her, a freshman philology student, spilling her coffee on her snow-white blouse. I remember her surprised, and then annoyed look, her flushed cheeks, her indignant exclamation. And then she smiled. She smiled so sincerely, so disarmingly, that all my embarrassment and awkwardness vanished, as if by magic. That smile, it conquered me at first sight. There was some childish spontaneity in it, some inner purity and light that simply charmed me. We started talking, as if we had known each other for ages, as if we were connected by an invisible thread of fate. That day, we talked for several hours, forgetting about lectures, about business, about everything in the world. That day, our story began. A love story, as it seemed to me then, for life. I remembered our first dates, timid kisses under the moon, long walks in the university park, heated debates about books and movies, shared dreams and plans for the future. Sarah was so bright, so cheerful, so full of energy and enthusiasm. She infected me with her optimism, her faith in the best, her ability to see beauty in the simplest things. She was my sun, my light, my inspiration. I couldn't imagine life without her. I remembered our wedding, modest, but so touching and heartfelt, surrounded by our closest friends and relatives. I remember tears of joy in my mother's eyes, my father's proud look, the happy smiles of our friends. I remember Sarah walking towards me down the aisle, in her snow-white dress, like an angel, like a goddess, like the embodiment of my dream. I remember how my voice trembled when I made my vows of fidelity, how our hearts burned, filled with love and hope. That day I was the happiest man on earth. I believed that our love was invincible, that we would overcome all trials, that our family would be strong and unbreakable. I remembered Liam's birth, that incredible magical moment when I first held our newborn son in my arms. I remember tears of happiness in Sarah's eyes, her tired but so radiant smile, her quiet whisper, "Look how beautiful he is. He looks so much like you." That moment, I felt like the richest man in the world. I had a family, a beloved wife, a healthy son, a cozy home, a job I enjoyed. What else do you need for happiness? What went wrong? When did everything change? Where did I make a mistake? When did our fairy tale turn into a nightmare? I tried to analyze our relationship over the past years, over the past months, over the past weeks. I was looking for at least some signs, at least some hints that something was wrong. And, to my horror, I began to find them. Small, insignificant at first glance, details that previously seemed unimportant, accidental, now suddenly acquired a sinister meaning, forming a general picture of betrayal. Sarah became more withdrawn, more silent. We spent evenings in silence, each immersed in our own thoughts, in our own affairs. Before, we loved to chat for hours about everything in the world, share our joys and sorrows with each other, discuss books we read and movies we watched, make plans for the future. Now, conversations became short, formal, perfunctory. "How was your day? What's for dinner? How's Liam?" And that's it. No soulfulness, no closeness, no sincerity. Sarah smiled less often. Her eyes lost that sparkling gleam, that radiance that had so charmed me at the very beginning of our relationship. Her smile became somehow strained, formal, as if she was doing me a favor by smiling back at my joke or compliment. And sometimes when I looked at her, it seemed to me that there was some sadness, some longing, some guilt. But I brushed aside these thoughts, attributing everything to fatigue, to stress, to postpartum depression, which, as I read on the internet, can last for years. Sarah became more irritable, more quick-tempered. Minor household quarrels that used to be resolved peacefully and quickly now escalated into violent scandals, with shouting, tears, mutual accusations. She started to nitpick at me over trifles, criticize my work, my habits, my friends. Everything annoyed her. How I ate, how I dressed, how I talked, how I spent time with Liam. I felt a wall of misunderstanding, a wall of alienation, a wall of hostility growing between us. Sarah became less likely to initiate intimate relationships. Our sex became somehow mechanical, formal, without passion, without desire, without closeness. Before, our intimate life was bright, rich, full of experiments and fantasies. Now everything came down to quick, perfunctory sex for show, to satisfy physiological needs, not spiritual intimacy. Sometimes I felt that she was doing me a favor by letting me touch her, as if she was fulfilling her marital duty, not sharing her love and passion with me. Sarah started spending more time away from home. Yoga, Pilates, Zumba, meetings with friends, handicraft courses, cooking masterclasses. Her schedule was booked by the minute, like a businesswoman's. Before, she spent almost all her time at home, with Liam, doing housework, cooking dinner for my arrival. Now, the house became a transit point for her, a place where she only came to spend the night, only to rush off again in the morning, on her own business. I was happy that she had found something to her liking, that she had escaped the routine of housework, that she had started to socialize more. But now I realized that all these yogas and courses were just a cover, just an alibi for her secret meetings with Michael. I remembered how a few months ago, Sarah suddenly began to show increased interest in my phone, my computer, my social networks. She casually asked for passwords to my accounts, asked who I was texting, who I was liking on Facebook. At first, I didn't attach any importance to it, attributed everything to female curiosity, to jealousy, to a desire to control the situation. But now I understand that it wasn't just interest, but a mirror reflection of her own guilt. She was projecting her own secret desires and actions onto me, suspecting me of what she herself was guilty of. It's like a thief who shouts loudest of all, "Stop, thief!" All these trifles, all these details, which previously seemed insignificant, accidental, now suddenly formed a terrifying, undeniable picture betrayal. How blind I was. How naive I was. How could I not notice the obvious, not see what was right in front of my nose? I felt like a complete idiot, deceived, humiliated, trampled. I was angry at Sarah, at Michael, at myself, for my blindness, for my gullibility, for my stupidity. Fury was seething inside me like a boiling cauldron, ready to explode at any minute. I wanted to scream, break furniture, smash dishes, destroy everything around. I wanted to pick up the phone and call Michael. Tell him everything I thought about him. Challenge him to a fight. Break his face. I wanted to grab Sarah by the shoulders and shake her until she confessed everything, until she told me the whole truth, down to the last, most bitter detail. But instead, I sat motionless on the bed, as if paralyzed, unable to move, unable to utter a word. I was in a state of stupor, in a state of shock, in a state of complete emotional paralysis. All my feelings seemed to have atrophied. All my emotions seemed to have burned out completely. All that remained was a gaping void, a frozen abyss of despair that swallowed me whole. I didn't know what to do next, where to run, who to turn to for help, how to live on with this knowledge, with this pain, with this betrayal. I felt lonely and helpless, like an abandoned puppy, lost in a huge, hostile city. It seemed to me that the whole world had collapsed, that all my dreams and hopes had been shattered to pieces, that my life was over. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think of anything else but Sarah's betrayal. I was obsessed with this thought, like a maniac, like a madman. It haunted me day and night, in my sleep and awake, giving me no peace for a minute. I felt myself slowly, but surely going crazy, sinking into the abyss of despair and hopelessness. I knew I needed to do something, make some decision, take some action, but I was completely paralyzed by fear, uncertainty, confusion. I was afraid of destroying my family, afraid of losing Liam, afraid of being left alone with my pain. I was afraid of the truth, afraid of facing reality, afraid of hearing confirmation of my worst fears from Sarah. And so I continued to sit motionless on the bed, like a statue, like a zombie, like a man who had lost his soul. Waiting for what? A miracle, deliverance, the end of the world. I didn't know. I was just waiting, in a state of complete hopeless paralysis. now. But paralysis, like any anomaly, cannot last forever. Even in the deepest coma, sooner or later, the moment of awakening comes. In my case, the awakening began not with a bright light or a loud sound, but with a quiet but persistent drop of irritation that seeped through the thick crust of numbness, like water through a crack in concrete. Irritation. A strange feeling for such a situation, right? Not anger, not rage, not despair, but irritation. Irritation at myself, at my weakness, at my helplessness, at this damn paralysis that had chained me, preventing me from moving, from taking a full breath, from even just screaming. I sat on the bed, still in the same position, motionlessly staring at the wall, probably for several hours already. The sun outside the window was slowly declining towards sunset. Long shadows lay on the floor. The room gradually plunged into twilight, and I was still sitting there, like a stone idol, unable to move, unable to tear my eyes away from that cursed wall. And suddenly, in this viscous, sticky silence, a sound rang out. A quiet, gentle, childish voice calling me. "Daddy, Daddy, where are you?" It was Liam, my son, my little sunshine, my ray of light in this dark, gloomy world. The sound of his voice pierced my numbness like a sharp knife. I shuddered, as if waking up from a deep sleep. The paralysis began to recede, slowly, reluctantly, as if unwilling to let me go from its cold, dead embrace. But Liam's voice sounded again, more persistent, more demanding. "Daddy, come on, you. I want to come to you." I slowly turned my head towards the door. Liam was standing on the threshold of the nursery, in his car pajamas, with a teddy bear in his arms, and looking at me with his big, trusting eyes. There was no fear, no surprise, no condemnation in his gaze, only childish love, childish affection, childish need for a father. And at that moment, something broke through in me. The irritation that had been building up inside me all these hours suddenly grew into something more, into something stronger, into something that made me move, act, live. Not anger, not rage, not despair, but stubbornness. Stubbornness mixed with paternal love, with a desire to protect my child, with a need to get my life back, my family back, my dignity back. I got up from the bed, slowly, uncertainly, as if my legs wouldn't obey me, as if I had forgotten how to walk. I went to Liam, knelt down, hugged him tightly, pressed him to myself, inhaling the smell of his hair, the smell of childhood, the smell of life. "Hi, Malish," I whispered, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "What's wrong? Why aren't you asleep?" Liam snuggled up to me in response, burying his face in my neck. "I was looking for you," he mumbled. "Mommy said you were tired and resting, and I missed you. Can I sit with you?" "Of course you can," I said, getting up from my knees and taking him in my arms. "Let's go to the living room. We'll watch cartoons or read a book or... What do you want?" "Cartoons!" Liam shouted, clapping his hands joyfully. "About cars." I smiled, trying to hide my pain, my anxiety, my despair behind a mask of paternal love and care. I carried Liam to the living room, sat him down on the sofa, turned on the TV, found his favorite cartoon about transformer cars. He immediately forgot about everything in the world, immersed in the world of bright colors, loud sounds, and exciting adventures. And I sat down next to him, hugged him, and started watching the cartoon with him, although honestly I didn't see or hear anything. All my thoughts, all my feelings, all my attention were focused on something else, on Sarah, on Michael, on the betrayal that was tearing me apart from within. But Liam's presence next to me, his warmth, his love, his childish spontaneity, like an anchor, kept me afloat, preventing me from finally drowning in the abyss of despair. For his sake, for my son's sake, I had to hold on, had to fight, had to find the strength in myself to live on, no matter what. After cartoons, Liam wanted to eat. I took him to the kitchen, fed him yogurt and cookies, washed him, changed him into pajamas, and carried him back to the nursery. I put him to bed, sang a lullaby, kissed him good night. He fell asleep quickly, peacefully, serenely, like all children. And I left the nursery, closed the door, and was left alone with my pain, with my anxiety, with my unresolved problem. Sarah still hadn't come out of the bedroom. She probably thought that I was still resting, that I was still in my paralysis, that I was still incapable of anything but sitting and blankly staring at the wall. She was wrong. The paralysis was receding. Irritation was turning into stubbornness. Stubbornness into determination. Determination into what? Anger? Revenge? Despair? I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing. I couldn't sit idly by anymore. I had to do something. Had to take at least some steps to break out of this vicious circle of lies and deceit, to regain control over my life. To find out the truth. I got up, went to the window, looked out at the street. It was already dark outside. The streetlights were on. Rare cars were driving along the quiet, deserted street. Lights were on in the windows of neighboring houses. Other people lived there, behind those windows, with their joys and sorrows, with their problems and worries. And none of them knew what was happening in my house, what was going on in my soul, that I was standing at the window now, broken, betrayed, trampled, and didn't know how to live on. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down, gather my thoughts, make some decision. What should I do? Where to start? How to find out the truth? How to do the right thing? How to save my family, if it was still possible? Or how to get out of this situation with dignity, preserving at least some semblance of human dignity? Many options were spinning in my head, many scenarios, many questions to which there were no answers. Argue with Sarah, make a scene, kick her out of the house, file for divorce, tell her parents everything, call Michael and challenge him to a man-to-man talk, hire a private investigator to gather evidence of her infidelity, talk to Emily, Michael's wife, tell her the truth, warn her of the danger, or try to forgive Sarah, forget everything like a bad dream, pretend that nothing happened, start from scratch, give her a second chance, believe in her repentance, believe that she still loved me. The last option seemed the most absurd, the most suicidal. How could I forgive her? How could I forget the betrayal? How could I trust her again after everything that had happened? No, it was impossible. It would be tantamount to self-humiliation, self-destruction, self-denial. But the other options didn't seem appealing to me either. Scandals, quarrels, divorces, detectives, showdowns. It was all so dirty, so humiliating, so unmanly somehow. I didn't want to sink to the level of petty squabbles, to the level of market brawls, to the level of betrayers. What then? What should I do? How to do the right thing? How to get out of this labyrinth of lies and deceit, preserving at least something of my former life, of my former personality? And then it dawned on me. Suddenly, like a flash of lightning in the dark sky, a thought arose in my head. Simple, obvious, but for some reason it hadn't occurred to me before. A thought that could become the key to unraveling, the key to the truth, key to a solution. I have to talk to Sarah. Directly. Frank. Dottie. This phrase revolved in my head like a mantra, like an incantation, like the last hope of salvation. Talk, .ho. Find out. Decide. It sounds so simple, so logical, so adult. But my chest still ached, everything inside trembled, as if before jumping into an abyss. How to begin? Where to start this conversation that could turn my whole life upside down? What words to start with so as not to scare away, not push away, not provoke a storm of denial or hysteria? Say it straight to her face. Sarah, I know about Michael. Too abrupt, too aggressive. Start with accusations. She'll shut down, go on the defensive, start denying, lying, wriggling out of it. No, a different approach is needed. I need to act more subtly, smarter, more cunningly, if I want to get to the truth. Maybe start from afar. Ask how she's doing, how her day was, how Liam is. Pretend that nothing happened, that I know nothing, that everything is as usual. And then, as if casually, steer the conversation to the topic of our relationship, to the topic of her mood, to the topic of her detachment. Ask if we're okay, if everything suits her, if she doesn't feel lonely, unhappy, misunderstood, and wait for what she says. Wait, will she confess herself, or will she start lying again, twisting, hiding the truth? No, too risky. Too much uncertainty, too many chances that everything will go wrong. I'm not sure I can play this role. The role of a husband who suspects nothing. The role of a loving and caring spouse, when everything inside me is boiling with anger and pain. I'm afraid that I won't hold out. I'll break down, give myself away, and everything will go to hell. I need to act for sure. I need to immediately let her know that I'm not blind, not deaf, not an idiot. I need to confront her with the fact, so that she has no opportunity to deny, lie, wriggle out of it. I need to deprive her of the initiative, force her to react to my words, to my questions, to my accusations. But how to do it without breaking down into a scream, without humiliating her, without humiliating myself? How to maintain composure, coolness, dignity, when everything inside is bursting with pain and rage? How to speak calmly, in an even voice, when you want to scream, sob, tear your hair out? I paced the room again, trying to find an answer to this agonizing question. Maybe drink something soothing? Take a valerian tablet, or drink a shot of cognac to muffle the pain, dull the emotions, maintain at least some semblance of self-control. No, alcohol is not the answer. Alcohol will only exacerbate the situation, fuel emotions, weaken control. I need to be sober, clear-headed, collected to withstand this conversation, so as not to break things, so as not to make things worse. Maybe write myself a cheat sheet. Write down on paper everything I want to say, all the questions I want to ask, all the accusations I want to present, so as not to forget anything important, so as not to lose my train of thought, so as not to let emotions lead me astray. What nonsense. A cheat sheet in a conversation with my wife about infidelity, as if I'm at an exam, as if I'm taking a test for husband suitability. No, I need to speak from the heart, say what I feel, tell the truth, no matter how bitter and terrible it may be. But how to tell the truth calmly, without shouting, without crying, without cursing. How to express all my pain, all my disappointment, all my despair, without breaking down into hysterics, without losing human dignity. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe just be silent. Look her in the eyes, silently, heavily, reproachfully, letting her understand that I know everything, that I see everything, that I feel everything. Maybe silence will say more than any words. Maybe silence will be more eloquent, more convincing, more agonizing for her. No, silence is also not an option. Silence will only increase the tension, increase misunderstanding, prolong the agony. I need to talk. I need to find out. I need to decide. I need to put an end to this story, whatever that end may be. But how to begin? How to utter the first word, first phrase, the first sound? How to break this ringing, oppressive, suffocating silence that hung between us like an impenetrable wall? I went to the bedroom door. It was closed. Behind it, Sarah, my wife, the woman I had loved for 10 years, the woman who had betrayed me, the woman I needed to talk to. I raised my hand to knock, but my hand was shaking. My fingers wouldn't obey. I couldn't bring myself to knock. I was afraid of what would happen next. afraid of her reaction, afraid of the truth, afraid of everything. And at that moment, the door slowly, noiselessly opened, and Sarah appeared on the threshold. Now, the silence in the living room became almost tangible, like a dense, suffocating fog hanging between us. Sarah stood on the bedroom threshold, in her silk pajamas, so domestic, so familiar, and yet so alien. Her sleepy smile had faded, replaced by an expression of anxiety and caution. Something akin to fear flickered in her eyes, as if she sensed that the air was charged with tension, that something irreparable was about to happen. She took a few hesitant steps into the living room, peering at my face, probably trying to read what awaited her. "Is something wrong?" she asked quietly, her voice sounding a little hoarse, sleepy. "Why aren't you asleep?" "Liam's been asleep for ages." I remained silent, not breaking eye contact with her. My throat was dry, words stuck like a lump. I looked at her and saw not just Sarah, my wife, the mother of my son, the woman I had loved for 10 years. I saw a liar, a betrayer, a deceiver before me. A woman who had trampled my love, my faith, my life. A woman I no longer knew. "We need to talk," I finally said, my voice sounding hollow and foreign, as if it belonged to someone else. "Sit down." Sarah sat on the edge of the sofa, opposite me, at a distance, as if afraid to get closer, as if sensing danger emanating from me. She nervously twisted the hem of her pajamas, lowering her eyes, avoiding my gaze. "What is it?" she asked again, her voice trembling. "What happened?" "I know," I said simply, directly, without beating around the bush, without preamble. The words escaped my lips like a shot, like a sentence. "I know about you and Michael." Silence. Again, silence, even thicker, even more oppressive than before. Sarah froze, as if turned to stone. She stopped breathing, stopped moving, ceased to exist. Only her eyes, wide open, full of horror, betrayed her inner state. Several long, agonizing seconds passed before she finally snapped out of her stupor. What are you talking about?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What, Michael? I don't understand." A lie. The first lie. Expected, predictable, but no less painful for it. I felt a wave of anger rising inside me, a wave of rage, a wave of disgust. But I held back. I had promised myself that I would remain calm, that I wouldn't let emotions take over, that I would speak like a man, civilizedly, with dignity. "Don't lie," I said in an even voice, trying to keep it from trembling. "I know everything, Sarah, everything. I read your post on the forum. I saw your search history in the browser. I know about you and Michael, about your meetings, about your feelings, about your feelings." Sarah was silent. She sat with her head bowed, like a guilty schoolgirl caught red-handed. But in her silence, there was no repentance, no regret, no shame. Only fear. Fear of exposure, fear of punishment, fear of consequences. It's not what you think," she finally mumbled, without raising her eyes. "You misunderstood everything. It's just friendship. We're just close friends. We just support each other. Nothing more." Another lie. Even more ridiculous, even more offensive than the first. Friendship, support, close friends. After everything I had read, after everything I had learned. Did she seriously think I would believe this nonsense? "Friendship?" I repeated, smiling bitterly. "Friendship that has lasted for months, behind my back. Friendship about which you write anonymous posts on internet forums, confessing your love to another man. Friendship that includes romantic trips, dates, intimate photos? Is that what you call friendship, Sarah? Are you serious?" She was silent again. But this time, the silence was different. Not fear, but capitulation. She realized that denial was useless, that lies would no longer help, that the truth had come out, and she would have to face it. She slowly raised her head, looked at me. There were tears in her eyes. Real tears, not crocodile tears. Tears of despair. Tears of hopelessness. Tears. Pain. Yes, she whispered, her voice breaking. Yes, it's true. I have feelings for Michael. Confession. Finally. Bitter, belated, dragged out with pliers, but a confession nonetheless. I felt something breaking inside me, something collapsing, something dying. The last hope, the last illusion, the last belief that it was all a mistake, a misunderstanding. Bad dream. No, it wasn't a dream. It was reality. Cruel, merciless, unbearable reality. Feelings? I repeated, my voice sounding tired and indifferent. Do you love him? Sarah lowered her eyes again, tears streaming down her cheeks, falling onto her pajamas. I don't know, she whispered. I'm confused. I feel bad. I feel very bad. You feel bad? I echoed her words, smiling even more bitterly. What about me, Sarah? Did you think about me? Did you think about Liam? Did you think about what you were doing when you were having an affair behind my back? When you were lying to my face? When you were betraying our family? She started to cry. Real, bitter, inconsolable sobs shook her body. I didn't want to, she squeezed out through tears. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to destroy our family. I don't know how it happened. It just happened. Just happened. I repeated, my voice sounding increasingly tired, increasingly indifferent. Like an earthquake, like a flood, like a natural disaster. Infidelity is not a natural disaster, Sarah. It's a choice, your choice. You chose him. You chose lies. She continued to cry, without answering, without a pravdivoyas, without denying. Just cried, inconsolably, hopelessly, as if mourning her own life, her own love, her own family, which she herself had destroyed. I looked at her, and felt nothing. No anger, no rage, no resentment, no despair. Only emptiness. A complete, all-consuming emptiness that filled my entire being, crowding out all other feelings, all other emotions. Emptiness, cold, indifference. As if I had burned out completely, as if all my feelings had died, as if I had turned into a soulless robot, observing what was happening from the sidelines, feeling neither pain nor joy, nor sympathy nor pity. What happens next? Sarah asked quietly, through tears, raising her tear-stained eyes to me. What are we going to do? I don't know, I replied, shrugging my shoulders. I don't know, Sarah. Honestly, I have no idea what will happen next. You've destroyed everything. You've shattered everything into pieces, and I'm not sure I want to, and I'm not sure I can glue these pieces back together. I'm not sure I want to, and I'm not sure I can forgive you. I'm not sure I want to, and I'm not sure I can live with you anymore. Sarah cried again, even harder, even more inconsolably than before. But I no longer felt pity. Not a drop. Only weariness. Weariness from lies, from deceit, from betrayal, from this whole dirty, disgusting story. Weariness from life. The decision is yours, I said, getting up from the armchair and walking to the window. You decide, Sarah. What do you want? What are you going to do? Do you want to go to him? Go. Do you want to stay? Stay. But know one thing. Nothing will ever be the same again. Never between us. It's over. Love is... I turned away from her, looked out the window, at the night city, at the twinkling lights, at the distant stars, and I felt relief. Strange, unexpected, but relief. As if a heavy burden had fallen from my shoulders, as if I had broken free from captivity, as if I had freed myself from something heavy, oppressive, agonizing. Let there be emptiness ahead. Let there be uncertainty ahead. Let there be pain and suffering ahead. But behind me lies betrayal, deceit. And from that deceit, I was finally free. Sarah continued to cry behind my back. But I no longer listened. I no longer felt. I just stood at the window, looked into the darkness, and waited. For what? Probably for dawn. Probably for a new day. Probably for a new life. A life without lies. A life without betrayal. A life without Sarah. A life in emptiness. But my own honest, free emptiness. Be